A lot of the overwhelm that you're feeling, or a lot of the controversy that you're going through, is you're actually in the middle of transitioning into a more peaceful life. And I am an ordained minister. I did go through a training program through the Spiritual Living Center, and I did grow up as a Baptist. But when I went to college, though, I realized that I needed to explore a little more and kind of figure out who I was. And so that started my journey. My journey took me many years to finally get to this. I had a long corporate career, and I realized that even though I had a really nice, successful corporate career over 30 years, I wasn't happy. I just didn't feel fulfilled. And it was a very high stress, high pressure position. And there were times that I was completely overwhelmed. There were times that I felt like I had so much work and so many responsibilities that I just would never be able to accomplish it. And that led to a lot of being tense and sometimes even in a panic mode, starting to feel panicked. So we ask ourselves, how do we start letting go of overwhelm? But first, we ask ourselves, what is overwhelm? What is it? And we're going to move from overwhelm today into a whole new idea of how to start releasing overwhelm in our life and to gain balance in terms of things that we do in our life. So what happens is overwhelm is typically when the things that you have to accomplish exceed the demand of your time or the demand of your energy or the demand of your health. And you get to the point to where you feel like you can't handle things. And sometimes what overwhelm really means is that we've just put too many things on our plate, or someone else has put too many things on our plate, or someone has given us so much at one time that our brain literally can't take it. You've heard like people talk about brain dump. They give you so much information and then you're supposed to remember it all. And that's what happens. The body starts to react. And there's different things that'll start to happen. Also, when you make too many commitments. So I don't know if you've ever experienced when people call and go, could you help out with this? Or could you do this or do that? And instead of setting a boundary with yourself and saying no, you say yes. And that's part of what creates overwhelm, is saying yes to those things that you probably should say no to and create a boundary around yourself. So overwhelm is a result of not setting boundaries. Also, too, overwhelm can grow from energy outside of you. So right now, our world's in a lot of chaos. We have a lot of stuff going on around us. There's a lot of, we've got social media that people are being affected emotionally. The best thing for people who are overwhelmed on social media, they should just get off of it. But unfortunately, they don't set boundaries and they stay on it. Then they hear things or see things or read things that upset them. And then it just starts that energy again. And social media has its place, but when it starts to affect you emotionally, physically, mentally, that's not a good place. But a lot of people have trouble getting off of it. So what are some of the symptoms? Some of the symptoms is that you might feel stressed or anxiety. You might physically, you feel it. You might have difficulty being able to focus. And you might have trouble making decisions. Like, I don't know if I can make a decision. Can I make a decision? And then you also might begin to feel physically burned out, tired all the time, just wanting to not really accomplish anything, or you just put things off, you procrastinate. I'll do this later. So that are some of the symptoms of being overwhelmed. And the reality is that when you get into this place, it starts to damage you physically, emotionally, and mentally. So that's why we all want to find a place in our life where we can be very calm. Find that peace or that hobby or that behavior that will help us stay calm and peaceful. And also, too, you want to be able to put yourself in a position where you can let go of things that really aren't that important. I know here, even running a business, it's hard sometimes because there's a lot of things to do. And I had to learn to delegate and to let others do for me that I was doing for myself. So what is a way to start to work through overwhelm? Number one, set boundaries. You have to really work on setting boundaries. And it means saying no. I think there was a movie one time, I think Jim Carrey was in it, and I think it was called Yes. You had to, they were inspired to say yes to everything in one day, or all the time. And it was how it changed his life. And so what I say to people is you should take a day and say no all day. Learn to say no all day to anything and everything that people are bringing to you. The other part is you want to create time for rest, self-care. Self-care can be a lot of things. Self-care could be just going for a walk. Self-care could be having a peaceful conversation with a friend. Self-care could be developing a hobby that you love. I know many of you in here, you're into stones and crystals, and you love collecting them or finding them or putting them out, feeling connected to them, feeling the energy. That's self-care. Some of you are creative. You might like to paint, or you might like to sculpt, or you might like to sing or to dance. That's all self-care because you're bringing out the creative side of you. And the creative side of you is very important because when you allow yourself to be creative, no matter what it is, creative could be planting flowers. Creative could be just sketching or drawing anything. There's so many things you can do. Creative could just be sitting and thinking, just thinking about new things in your life. Or I used to have this little game that I play with myself called What If? What if this could be invented? What if this could happen? What if? And it would open up my thinking process. It would open up my creativity. So one of the great ways is to begin to start with saying no and then self-care. And self-care is also about beginning to develop a daily practice that'll help you. So one of those daily practices is, a lot of people talk about meditation. They say, oh, meditation's great. You should do that every day. Well, I don't necessarily always agree with that because there's different kinds of meditation. And some meditations you literally would take a class to learn how to meditate that way. And some meditations can be just painting is a form of meditation. Cooking is a form of meditation because you're focusing. So I always suggest find a meditation that works for you. And one of the first ones is to sit in stillness. To just sit, be still, but listen to all the things around you. And pay attention, and it's called being present. And sometimes being present in the middle of chaos is one of the best ways to serve yourself. Like if you're in the middle of all kinds of chaos going on at work, sometimes you might just sit and go, okay, I'm just going to close my eyes for a second. I'm just going to be present. I'm going to push out. I hear everything, but I'm going to push it out. And you'd be surprised if you did that even for 1 minute every day. Same thing with any emotional feelings. If you're feeling emotional or you're feeling panicky, if you can bring yourself to the place of saying, okay, I'm just going to sit in stillness right now. I'm going to just be present. I'm going to push everything out around me. I'm going to put this big boundary around me. And I'm going to take 1 minute and I'm just going to sit in stillness. When you do that, your whole body changes. Your hormonal energy shifts. And movement is good sometimes. Just a little movement, standing up, sitting down. It changes your whole perspective. Because you notice when people are depressed, what do? They hold their head down. And they kind of hold in because they don't want to be open. And one of the best ways is to start working on emotional anxiety or mental anxiety is to really open yourself so that you receive more positive energy. And also you breathe. Breathing is really important. In fact, breathing is the number one step to relieving overwhelm. It's the number one step. We as people don't breathe completely deeply. And I know I mentioned this once before. So you can go several days without water, and our bodies are composed of a lot of water. You can go probably maybe even a month, couple of months without food, but you can only go a few minutes without breath. And from the day that you're born, you have your first breath, and from the day that you pass, you have your last breath. And in between, you have all this breathing. And breathing is a key. It's a key to overwhelm. It really is. Because we really don't know how to breathe. When we get afraid, what do? Or, guess what? We hold our breath. The manager comes into your office. Can you come to my office? What do? You immediately hold your breath. That's fear. And if something scares you, you hold your breath. And the reality is you should breathe. Now, it's a natural reaction. Of course it is. But if you learn how to breathe through situations that are coming up in your life, you can overcome those situations. And breathing is a key to that. And deep breathing, in fact, it's one of the keys to many things. It's one of the keys to opening yourself up spiritually, opening yourself up to the energy in the world and the energy of stones and crystals. There's a difference. If you hold a crystal and you breathe deeply by holding that crystal, you're actually connecting with the energy of that crystal. And I know that I share with all the customers that come in that when you buy crystal, you want to clear it because it has the energy of our shop or the energy sometimes of others that are touching it or picking it up, although we do sage our crystals every morning. But when you get that crystal, you want to take it home. You want to clear it, whether you clear it with sage or whether you clear it with Florida water or whether you clear it with incense or all kinds of things that you can use to clear it with. Once you clear it, you then want to set your intention. And one of the ways that I suggest that is you set your intention, but you hold that stone or crystal. You put your breath into it. You bring it to life. Your breath, your energy. So as an example, selenite is a great stone for anxiety, clearing, fear, all kinds of things. And I know a lot of customers that carry it with them, and when they get anxious, they pull it out, they hold it. They usually carry a small piece. They pull it out, they hold it, and then a lot of times they'll blow into that stone, and they're connecting with the energy of the stone. And also, whether you know or not, stones are minerals. They're minerals in the earth, and they hardened. And there's still a lot of the minerals that are in stones are still not necessarily hard, like lithium. Lithium is that's a medicine. It's turned into a medicine. Comes out of the earth. When it hardens over millions of years, it becomes lepidolite. And lepidolite is sort of a white and purple stone. And so I bet a lot of you didn't know that a lot of the stones and crystals that are hard rocks out there are actually minerals that are used in all kinds of things. Pepto-Bismol, the stomach medicine that's pink, that comes from bismuth. Bismuth is a mineral found in the earth. So our bodies need minerals, and that's why some of us are attracted to them, because they're calling us. And that can certainly help us clear our energy and connect. Another way to help work through overwhelm is to picture yourself calm. Picture yourself peaceful. Think of a peaceful place. Close your eyes. Think of somewhere that you want to be, not where you are. And again, that's a form of visualization and also sitting in stillness. And then, I also talked about connecting with others. Connect with somebody who is calm. Connect with someone that is peaceful, that can help you talk through something, work through something. We talk about we have to vent, and we vent because we've got a lot of energy that has built up within us. And we're like, I just have to vent today. Unfortunately, a lot of people vent physically, road rage. They're overwhelmed. I can tell you, people that are always angry and driving really fast and doing all kinds of crazy things, they're overwhelmed. And they're venting with their car. That's what they're doing. And that's dangerous. Or people vent when their energy gets to a certain level and they've been overwhelmed by issues. And of course, we know when people get to this highest level of overwhelm, sometimes things that aren't so great happen. So it's the nice thing about beginning to understand, if I'm overwhelmed, what's going to happen is, you start out first, you can start to reduce overwhelm by setting boundaries. That's the first step, because you're overwhelmed because you've taken on too much. And then the second step is to begin to learn behaviors that help you create peace and calm in your life. And then what does that do when you do that? You start to feel better about yourself. You can have better relationships with others, conversations, family, friends, coworkers. And then also, it gives you more confidence. And again, part of that is breathing. You start with breathing. Also, identify what triggers you. Like, what is it that triggers you when you feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable? Many people have different triggers. It could be someone not accepting you, or someone, I'll just give you an example. One of our customers walked in one day, and we were really, really busy, but one of our, a rule is we want to acknowledge everybody that comes in the door. And on that particular day, we had a lot of people in the shop, and our people were at the register, and this individual didn't get recognized at the moment that they came in. And later, that customer came in and said, I didn't feel very important because I didn't get recognized. And I was like, oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that we didn't acknowledge you, that, we didn't at least, after a few minutes, say hello to you or come out and ask you if there's anything we can help you with. And I'm really sorry. And she got really angry and said, well, I just don't know. I just didn't get acknowledged, and I just don't know if I want to come back. And I was like, well, I'm really sorry that happened, but I'm here now. And I'm ready to acknowledge you 100%. What can I help you with? How can I make you feel better? But what I knew in that moment was that was a trigger for that person because they needed to be recognized. They had a need to be recognized, and that's okay. And I was actually very grateful that they shared that with me because a lot of people walk in a door somewhere and something, if they don't get recognized or they don't feel like they were welcome, they walk out. And I would never know. So you have to think about what are your triggers that trigger your overwhelm. So if you get into a panic or if you're getting frustrated or you're all of a sudden things just feel too much, too heavy, you really have to ask yourself, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is it that's making me feel overwhelmed right now? What is it? Because you have to ask that question. If you can't or don't ask that question, you're not going to be able to get the answers. So identifying your triggers are really important. And then the other thing is to also start learning to connect with yourself, is to completely and totally connect with who you are. And then I said lastly, is to find a network to connect with, to find a network for people to be able to open up, to share, to tell people how you feel about certain things. And, we talk about peace. We talk about wanting to have the perfect life. We talk about wanting to really move through and have joy in our life, have lots of joy, lots of peace. And a lot of that starts with the way the world is. And what I want to do is I want to have a conversation, sort of an interactive with all of you, because I want to share with you that a lot of what's going on in the world is greater than what you're dealing with right now and where a lot of this comes from. And I want to be able to give you sort of a roadmap, how to start working on the things in your life that will help you become more connected, more successful, and more peaceful. So let's talk a little bit about the energy of the world. And have any of you heard any conversations or read or been online and heard about like fifth dimension, fourth dimension energy? Any of you ever heard that? Anything about that? Anyone acknowledge? Nope. No?
Wasn't a Billy Carson a little good? And that Dolores Claiborne, Dolores Cannon?
Yes. Yes.
Her, so, yes.
Okay, good. So what I would like to talk about, and I'm gonna share information from these documents, but I'm gonna give you information that's a lot more than what I'm going to talk about. But I want to introduce you into what we are in the age of moving from fourth dimension to what we call fifth dimension as human beings and as the world is changing. The energy of the world is changing. The energy is heavier, it's faster, it's more vibrant, it affects us. Sometimes we're just waking up and we're feeling that energy. And if you understand this energy and you understand some of the behaviors that you can begin to develop, you'll find yourself moving more into what we call the fifth dimension. Now, the sixth dimension is where people like Jesus, Buddha, Mother Teresa, many other masters, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, they developed an energy about themselves to where they were completely peaceful, dedicated to serving the world, and they walked through life without having a lot of problems. Now, I'm not saying that we have to move into that dimension and become those people, because those were what we call masters that walked the earth. But we have an opportunity to begin to change our behaviors to move more into the fifth dimension and have more peace. And what that'll do is, as we as people move our behaviors into that, we will change the world. And I am a believer that we are going to change, that the world is going to move more to a peaceful place, because right now we're in what we call a chaotic times. And what I do know, coming from the corporate world, is that chaos always precedes change. So when you have a lot of chaos, then things have to change eventually. And that's what we're going through as a world and as human beings. So what I'm going to do is I want to pass out a chart that I think might be helpful. I'll give you this chart. You can take one and pass it around. And then later I'm going to give you some details around this as well. But what I would like for you to do first, hold on, let me grab mine, is I'm going to explain this chart. I'd like for you to take a look at it. Now we're looking, does everybody have one? Okay. We're looking at the chart right now, and it says the fourth versus the fifth. So let's look at what the key characteristics are of the fourth dimension. Okay? So the fourth dimension is duality and polarity. It's emotional fluctuation. So it's like we're literally like oscillating from happiness to fear, from chaos to peace. We have a lot of that going on right now. In the fifth dimension, you literally start to become more unified. Our consciousness, among others, is unified, and we're more loving and we're more compassionate. We start to live that every day. If you look at the consciousness level, in the fourth dimension, we're all trying to seek our meaning. Who are we? Who am I? Where am I going? In the fifth dimension, you're at your highest energy, and you're much more heart-centered awareness. If you look at emotions, in the fourth dimension right now, we're reactive and at times unstable. It doesn't mean that we all are unstable, but it does mean that we have moments where we're not grounded. And then if you look at the fifth dimension, you're always in a stable, loving, and compassionate place. So it means that most of the day, probably 80% of the day, that's where you are. If you look at the judgment and ego in the fourth dimension, you're more ego-centered and you're more judgmental. And right now, we know there's a lot of people in this world. We just had a conversation earlier before we started. We were talking about the fact that a lot of religions are very egotistical and very judgmental. And they basically tell you if you don't believe like they believe, there's something wrong with you. So that's judgmental. And that's showing that in this fourth dimension, we have a lot of organizations, we have a lot of people. Look at social media. We've got people on social media judging everybody, disputing everybody, arguing, feeling as though they have to make a comment if you make a comment they don't like. So this is the energy that's happening. And actually, this is the way it's supposed to be happening, because it's going to move those individuals that start to work on themselves. It will move you into this higher dimension, and you will become more peaceful, more connected, more loving. And then also, when you look at the fifth dimension, it says you're detached from your ego and you become non-judgmental or less judgmental. Now, as a human being, we're going to judge. It doesn't matter. You're going to think things in your head. Like the other day, I saw a car. It was like a bright orange neon. And I was like, why would anybody buy a car that was bright orange? I was judging that. I was judging the owner of that car. I can't stop myself from that, but I can work on it. But I can become more vibrant on not judging people directly or even expressing that judgment. So, again, we tend to want to judge people that are different from us. And the reality is that we're all unique. No matter who we are, what we do, how we perform, we're all unique. And we want to be able to honor that. The word namaste is all about I honor the light in you, that the light in me honors the light in you, because we are eternal light beings. So this is just sort of a comparison to begin to show you that a lot of the overwhelm that you're feeling, or a lot of the controversy that you're going through, is you're actually in the middle of transitioning into a more peaceful life. Because if you're being bothered by this, it's kind of a good thing, believe it or not, because it means you're aware. You're aware of what's happening. Do you know how many people in this world are not aware at all of their behavior and don't care? And they're not compassionate toward others. They don't feel a lot, and all they care about is they're self-centered, and that's ego. And that's all they want. They want it their way, when they want it. I want it my way. Those people aren't even beginning to transition. And eventually they will be miserable, because for those of you that are being affected by this feeling of overwhelm and wanting to fix it, you are actually the individuals that will move into a more peaceful and calm world, no matter who you are and no matter what is going on with you in your life. You're in this energy of transitioning into a more peaceful and calm place in your life. But you have to be aware of it. You have to be aware of, how can I change this situation in my life right now? And just like I said, like at work, you're in the middle of chaos. You can be the non-chaotic person. You can be the one that says, I'm just not going to participate in this. Or I'm going to set a boundary and I'm going to speak up. I'm going to speak up. No, I'm not staying until 7 o'clock tonight. I leave at 5 o'clock. I work from 9 to 5. That's a big issue for a lot of people, because managers think, oh, you just need to get the job done. But the point is we don't set boundaries. And I can say that to myself. When I worked in the corporate world, I was a workaholic. I would stay sometimes until 7, 8 o'clock at night getting things done, because someone wanted something extra done that they probably really didn't even read or care about. But yet I stayed and did that and stayed away from my family and my children, because at that time in my life, work was more important. And I realized after many years that, wow, no, it's not that important. And yes, I can set boundaries. And yes, I can say no. And my life began to balance so much better, because I could spend time with my family. So it is really overcoming overwhelm is about learning the behaviors to begin to create balance and joy in your life. And you will begin to move more into the energy that the world is providing, because the world is providing this for you to be able to move into that. So like I said earlier, when you feel like you're in chaos, or you feel like, oh, I'm having a panic attack, or, I'm very emotional about the situation, the reality is that's a good thing, because you have a conscience and because you're working hard to shift yourself when it comes to that. And if you look down further, I went ahead and provided the third dimension, and then also to provided the first, second, third. So the key character, like if you're in the first dimension, you're purely a physical person, and you basically are in basic what we call survival instinct, and you really have no emotions. You're just in a basic existence, and it's where you're not aware of anything. You're just sort of floating through life, and that sometimes is someone who's extremely narcissistic, and that's really where a lot of people are. In the second dimension, you're instinctual, you're instinct-based, you're reactive, and you basically live life in fear. So we've moved over the thousands of years into the third dimension, fourth dimension. The third dimension is that where you still have an ego, you're still learning how to survive, you still carry fear, anxiety, but we've moved now into the fourth dimension where we're saying, I don't want to be fearful, I really want to be more peaceful. So, but you're having to experience it in order to move out of it. And that's where overwhelm comes from. It comes from learning to move from the chaos that you're in into a more peaceful way by developing new behaviors and new habits and releasing any kind of trauma or anything that's not serving you and letting it go. Just letting it go. Not letting it manage you, you manage it. So this chart is a good way to keep available and to look at that every now and then. Now, I'm going to pass out how you could raise your vibration, and we have about 20 minutes. I'm just going to go through what this list looks like, but I'm also going to give you what's called fourth dimension to fifth dimension behavior. And this is a document that you can look at both of these. They're fairly detailed, but it can give you some good insight. How you start to work on yourself and finding something. You don't have to do everything that's on this list. If you just find one thing that works for you, that right there can be the catalyst to help you begin to shift your behavior and your perspective. So I'll give you, you can take one of these for raising your vibrations, and we'll talk about these briefly. And then the other document that I'm going to pass out, that's just something that you can read when you leave here today. It'll give you a good amount of information. So one of the first steps to move away from being overwhelmed is to raise your vibration. Like raise your vibrational energy. And raising your vibrational energy is a key that will bring you more peace and calm in your life. So here's some steps that are going to help you raise your energy. The first one is to practice gratitude. You've probably heard this a lot, but believe it or not, practicing gratitude, just being grateful for something you have in your life right now. You know, it's like, I have a roof over my head. You know, I have a vehicle to get to and from work. Whatever it is that you have. But practicing gratitude is very important. So when you're feeling really stuck and everything's going wrong, and you're in the middle of a difficult relationship situation, and you move away from that, and you sit down and you go, well, what am I really grateful for right now? What am I grateful for in my relationship? You know, what am I grateful for in my family? Or what am I grateful for right now, where I'm sitting right now? And a lot of people say, oh, that doesn't work. It does work. I know it works. I have 4 children, and they're all grown, and all of them have gone through difficult circumstances. But I know one thing, when things get really tough, they go into being grateful for what they have. And they've even told me that helps bring them out of where they're feeling. So we want to learn to feel grateful. The next one is mindfulness and meditation. And I talked about that earlier. I personally am not a deep meditator, but I am what we call the 1 minute or the 3 minute sitting in stillness, or just closing my eyes, or listening to guided meditations. Guided meditations help you get out of the monkey mind because the person's telling you what to do. And as long as you're thinking, you know, okay, now close your eyes, now breathe deeply, now think about this, now think about that, that keeps my mind from wandering. So guided meditations are great, and that can truly help you calm down. The other one is connect with nature. Take a walk. Go sit by a river or a lake. Go to the mountains. Just go walk outside where you live in your neighborhood. Just get outside of the environment that you're in. Even, for anybody that's at work, sometimes you just got to take a break and move away from what's going on there. And also, too, spending time outside, also, and it's interesting, my husband makes it a point every single day, even if it's cold, if the sun is out, he goes outside and sits for like 10 to 15 minutes because he's getting vitamin D. And that's the best source of vitamin D for our bodies. And so he does this every day just so he can make sure he's got all his vitamin D. And while he's sitting out there, he says he really enjoys because he just lets his mind just clear. And that's his, 10 to 15 minutes a day because he's in a very high stress job. And he has to get away from that. And that's one of the ways that he does it. And I'm sure that that's helped him a lot. He still deals with a lot of stress, but this has lowered a lot of the stress that he has. Eat high vibrational foods. Now, I'm not one to tell people what they should and shouldn't eat because I think everyone's different. Because a lot of people have this vision of you're not spiritual if you're vegetarian or you're not spiritual if you're vegan. That's not true. Your spirituality is what you make it to be. Your spirituality is what foods work for your body. Not all foods serve everybody. And, some people eat meat because they need it. And some people don't because they don't need it. Some people eat, lots of greens because they need it, but others may not need it. It really depends upon who you are. But there are different foods that can bring us nutrients and good things in our body. It's just like water is good. It is better to drink water than to drink soda all day long because water is going to serve your body a little better. So those are the kind of choices that we're talking about. The other one is to move your body, is to physical movement. And physical movement can be as simple as just walking or just standing in your home and moving your arms. Just a little bit of movement. It helps. It helps a lot, especially with the cold weather. A lot of people don't like to get out, but it's just doing a few things to move in your own home. The other one is positive affirmations. And positive affirmations is just, I call that self-talk to yourself, being more positive. Don't call yourself a dummy. Boy, I was a dummy, I did this today. I'm not a dummy. I just didn't think clearly when I did this today. Start thinking about your self-talk, your language. Practice forgiveness. That's a hard one. Do you know how many people in this world don't know how to forgive? Or they won't forgive? They don't want to forgive? I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm revengeful. Guess what? Being revengeful can make you sick. Being revengeful already affects you physically, mentally, and spiritually. The next one is surround yourself with high vibrational people. So if you have friends that are constantly putting you down, or friends that aren't supporting you, or friends that aren't loving you, get rid of them. And I'm serious about that because all they're going to do is pull you down. And the quality of your life is as good as the people that you surround yourself with. So one of the goals is to strive for people that are maybe a little more high vibrational than you, and their energy is going to pull you up. The next one is learn to listen to high vibrational music. And right now on YouTube, there's music called binaural beats and what they call Hertz 432. That's all energetic vibrational music. And you can listen to all kinds of wonderful healing music. It's everywhere on the internet. And there's no reason why you can't have access to it. A lot of these apps online called Calm, and there's another one that has a lot of Tibetan bowl music. All of that raises your vibration. And if that's the music you're listening to, even hard rock, believe it or not, and in my day it was called heavy metal music, believe it or not, it was very high vibrational energy. And that's why when you'd hear that music, you'd want to move or you'd want to dance or you'd want to really express yourself, but it had a vibration to it. Music and songs have vibration, and they can truly inspire us. Declutter your space. Okay, I have to admit, I'm pretty bad at that. I'm one of those people, I just seem to collect a lot of things. And when you have a lot of clutter where you are, there's no room for new things to come in. So if you declutter on a regular basis, you're always bringing in new energy, even better energy. Energetic cleansing, also cleanse yourself, cleanse your body. You know, use Palo Santo, use bay leaves in your kitchen cabinet. I mean, bay leaves is an herb. It can actually clear you, believe it or not. It's that simple. You don't have to come here and spend a lot of money on buying sage. You can just use bay leaves from the grocery store. It's that easy. It's that simple. Let go of fear. That's a hard one. I know that's a hard one for a lot of people, but journaling is great. Talking to others, expressing your fears, stepping into your fear. I had a lot of fears at one point about my health, so I did something crazy. I went skydiving because I said, if I'm not supposed to live, then, I'm going to go skydiving and at least experience that. Who knows? The chute may not even open. But the point is I did that to prove to myself that whatever fear I had about my health was a fear and not real. And that skydiving changed it all for me. But I stepped into my fear because I'm terrified of heights. I step up on a ladder in the shop and my legs are already shaking. So I had to step into that fear. And once I did, it shifted everything for me. So it can help sometimes if you have a really huge fear. Like I know I had a client once that said, well, I'm just terrified to break up with my boyfriend because I don't feel like I'll ever have another relationship. And I'm like, but you're telling me that he beats you up every week and you're afraid to let go? Let's talk about this. You have to step into your fear. And when she eventually left, her whole life changed and it was a lot better. And she didn't attract that energy anymore because she let go of it and she moved on. So you really do have to take a look at what is your biggest fear and then say, how do I step into this? And take baby steps. I took a big step. I jumped out of an airplane. But you can take baby steps. Maybe I should have climbed up a really tall ladder, and gotten used to that. But you can take baby steps to step into your fear. And align yourself with what you think your purpose is. Now, I know a lot of people say, I don't know my purpose. That's okay. You really don't have to know your purpose. One of the ways to begin to discover your purpose is to serve others. It doesn't matter what. Serving them by being supportive. I'm here today in support of this person. I invited this person. I decided to go, work on Thanksgiving Day and give out food to the homeless. I decided to support my coworker in bringing them their favorite flowers, just to let them know that I care. That's like serving others. That's like really aligning with your purpose. You'll learn your purpose. And you don't have to know your purpose in order to move forward and be purposeful. The other one is laugh and play. Don't take life too seriously, really, because none of us really get out of this life alive. Because ultimately, we do move on. Our energy, we are energetic beings. Our energy will move on. And then in conclusion, it's really about raising your vibration to get out of overwhelm. And what I just went through with you in this document is these are things that can help. And if you can just find one, just one, to work on what's going on with you, you may be surprised and start to see your life shift and to see yourself move out of these types of situations. And yes, maybe it takes a lifetime of working on this, or maybe it takes a few weeks, or maybe it takes a class, or maybe it takes a weekly gathering to discuss these things, to put you in the behaviors to move these kind of things that are overwhelming you out of your environment. And maybe it takes that, and maybe that's what you do. Maybe you say, well, maybe I'll just do a class. And I've got someone that's supporting me. I've got someone that's instructing me. So you can always do that as well. Or you can join an organization of people that are like-minded. You can join an organization of people that are sharing and teaching and showing you how to move forward, how to better your energy, and that in turn betters your life. And that moves you more into being a spiritual being, which is what I think we all really want to do. In our subconscious mind, we know that we want to be able to be connected to others and to be compassionate and to be loving. So this is just a very brief overview today of how you can begin to step out of what's keeping you stuck and not feeling that overwhelm that you feel every day. And as I said, just find one. Find one and practice it every week if you can. And I think you'll find that your life can change dramatically. Any questions, any thoughts, any feedback you'd like to share about what we've heard today?
I'll just validate what you've said, because I do a lot of this stuff, and I share that with other people I work with, and it's like, you know, and I've done even more stuff, but it's like, I was like excited to see this little chart. You know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like there, and didn't even row it, because I didn't, so it was.
That's right. It is validating to see. I mean, you're going to see. I mean, we're not 100% in the dimension all the time. We'll,
No, I was
yeah,
like thinking like 4.9.
Yeah,
5
yeah.
Or something, you know, but I remember being in those other ones.
right. And remember, it's just like your personality. There's different personality types. You'll weave in and out of different personalities. Same thing as you move from dimension. You'll still kind of weave in and out of the two dimensions. That's okay. But that's because you're growing. That's because you're moving. And eventually when you hit the full energy of the fifth dimension, you won't have those old things. You won't have that need to control. You'll literally be peaceful all day. And there will be chaos around you, but you will know how to manage it. You'll be able to be calm in the storm, literally. You'll be very calm in the storm. And that's the difference. But you're learning how to be that. You're learning how to move into that. And just like I said earlier, which I think is very important, the fact that you are experiencing some of the negative emotions is good, because that's going to move you forward, and that you're aware of it. Where you need to be for yourself is to be able to begin releasing that. You know, I know some people that everything they say is, you know, everything goes wrong for me. You know, everybody always does this to me. Now they're in a place where they're blaming everybody else, but they have not become aware that all those things that are happening is due to their actions. You know, they lose their job because they keep goofing off every time they get a job, and then they get fired. And they say, oh, it was the manager's fault. No, it was your fault. It was your fault. You need to be aware. What were you doing? Because the first step to changing yourself is becoming aware of it. If you're not aware, you can't change yourself. And like I said earlier, millions of people in this world that are not aware and don't care to be aware. You know, I know that there's been a term that's been used on the internet. They call it the Karen. And somebody who just wants everything their way, and they're always harassing others and complaining and all of this. But the point is that individuals that are not willing to acknowledge their behavior and how it affects others are just in their own dimension somewhere. So the fact that you're feeling it, you're experiencing it, but you're aware of it and you want to change it, that's how you're going to move into the fifth dimension. You will. And I see that with people every day. Any other thoughts, comments, feedback?
Yeah, I can say, my wife drags me into this stuff. You know, food banks, trapping cats to get them fixed, just volunteering. And I watch our life go, and I see good changes.
Yeah, that's
I mean, lots of them.
that's great. That's great. And you know, I love it when you say your wife gets you into this. Most men, their wives bring them into it.
Yep.
But once they do, you kind of catch on, don't you? You kind of step into it.
We've got definitely different people in our lives. We've got a different life. We're able to provide for this one, so she can go to college.
Oh,
This one. So,
yeah.
I don't go to college.
But
And that's
doing
okay.
all these things definitely
But just in general, like,
changes your life and the people you're around.
It does. It does. It's just like one habit that I have sometimes is like there's a lot of homeless people. We get a lot of homeless people around here in this area. It's kind of there's a couple of shelters around here, so during the day they have to leave. And one of the habits that I have, sometimes I just stop. It's not so much about me giving them money, but I just ask the question, what's your story? Like, what's your story? How'd you get here? Tell me a little bit about yourself. Because no one ever asks them, what's your story? Who are you? How'd you get here? Because most people don't care. You just hand them $5, hand them $1, whatever, move on, get out of my way. No, what's your story? Because I care. You know, it doesn't mean I can fix their life because I can't. They have to fix their life. But at least I'm paying some interest in who they are. And that's one thing they don't get. That's one thing homeless people don't get. No one cares. No one wants to talk to them. No one wants to understand why they got to where they are because there is a story. And sometimes that story can change. But I agree with you. The more I asked that question, the more involved I got in wanting to understand and, you know, and not to sort of, you know, toot my horn of self-praise or anything, but there was a man one time that it was actually in Las Vegas, and he was on the street, and there's a lot of homeless people begging on the streets in Las Vegas. And he was a Vietnam veteran. And I just said, stand up, you know, and he like looked at me, and I just gave him a hug. And I want you to know that a lot of individuals never get touched because they might smell bad or they might look bad or whatever. But the point is, that's all that person really wants is to be loved and to be acknowledged. The money keeps them alive, perhaps, and to eat or whatever, but we don't show compassion to a lot of people that are less fortunate, you know, that are on the streets.
A lot of people don't understand that they're a step away from being there,
Yes,
especially in our society today. 'Cause nobody
Yes.
cares.
and that's going to happen
It
more
don't take
often
much.
to people. It is. And it's happening to a lot, you're right, it's happening to a lot of people right now. So that's why we have to connect. That's why we have to be compassionate to others. That's why we have to understand what somebody else might be going through. Doesn't mean we have to take on their energy, but it means that we just have to say, okay, I'm just going to let that person go through what they're going through. And rarely, I don't always give money because I also know that money is not really going to solve the problem. It's that just the conversation sometimes, you never know. You might have a conversation that might change their life. So I agree. Getting involved, that's great. Being able to serve others. And you don't have to go out and change the world, but when the moment comes, when the opportunity comes, you have a choice. You can make a difference in somebody's life. Anything else?
I was just gonna say, I'm a huge believer in classical conditioning, and like the first one, practice gratitude. They say to find 3 things every single day that you're grateful for and say it, and eventually you'll retrain your brain into just always being grateful and acknowledging things that you're grateful for, and your whole space, your thinking changes.
That's great. Thank you. That's really beautiful. 3 things a day, every day, and you're retraining your brain. That's great. Thank you for that. I'm definitely going to remember that. And I am big into a lot of these things that help you kind of retrain your brain, but that's so simple but so profound. Thank you. That's great. Anything else? All right. Well, that's it for today. I appreciate you being here. I'm glad you could come. And I hope you'll join us again in the future. Hopefully, eventually, I can fill this room with people. And then we'll see where that takes us. So, thank you.